is a special presentation of Georgia Public Broadcasting.
Governor Sonny Perdue enters the Georgia House to deliver his fourth State of the State address.
And that is the subject of this special edition of Lawmakers on GPB. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gerald Bryant.
And I'm Wandi Lawson. The governor devoted much of his speech to education.
Following the State of the State address, we'll be back with a Democratic response from Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor.
But first, Governor Sonny Perdue.
Well, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, Senator Johnson, Representative Burkhalter, and members of the General Assembly, constitutional officers, members of the judiciary, the consular corps, and other distinguished guests, and most of all, my fellow Georgians. Today marks the fourth time that you've allowed me to come before you to report on the state of our great state of Georgia. In my first address, I spoke of dark clouds and a troubled economy battered by recession. The seas were stormy, but we were determined to find our way to a new Georgia, safe, healthy, educated, and growing. Last year, I reported an economic recovery was underway. Georgians were going back to work, the clouds were parting, and today I'm happy to say that our progress has been continued over the last 12 months. Our job growth has surged, our communities and our state grow stronger each day, and we're putting those dark clouds behind us, and we have many more sunny days ahead. I'm optimistic. With our growing economy, we should give credit where credit is due. Georgia's economic comeback is above all a tribute to our strengths as a state and to the optimism and enterprise of our citizens. And I'm proud of the millions of Georgians who've done the hard work of leading our recovery. The small business owners who grow companies that create good jobs for Georgia families. The investors and entrepreneurs who take the risk of bringing new ideas to market. The Georgia workers who are more productive and better prepared to compete in the global economy. I'm proud, too, of the thousands of the new Georgians who've moved to our state each year from all across the country and the world. Georgia today is the United States' 9th largest state and one of the fastest growing in the nation. At last count, there are over 9 million Georgians. People keep coming to our state because Georgia is a great place to live, to get an education, to work, and to raise a family. Georgia is a state of opportunity, and our job is to make sure it remains so. And the best way for those of us in public office to do that is to remember that government doesn't create jobs, growth, or prosperity. Our people do. Government's role is to create fertile opportunities for Georgians to succeed and prosper. And today, I would like to share with you my 2006 legislative agenda and budget priorities which do exactly that. My agenda for Georgia is based on what Georgians themselves have told me that are their priorities: education, children, jobs, and safe communities. And a state government that lives within its means and that respects individual liberty. This should be a familiar list because those have been my priorities from my first day in office. This year, thanks to our growing economy, we will have additional resources to invest in those priorities. I am projecting $1.25 billion in new revenues for 2007. That strong revenue gain gives us all a sense of relief. But our improving revenues are no cause for complacency. A growing population is good, but more Georgians mean more kids in our schools, more drivers on our roads, more patients in our healthcare system. These are unavoidable obligations that come with growth, just like the arrival of a new baby at home. Meeting those obligations will consume much of our new revenue, but not all of it. What makes this year's budget different is what we've done together over the last 3 years to make our state government more efficient and effective. The $640 million deficit that we inherited 3 years ago made changing our culture of state government spending not just a good idea, but also a necessity. We ask each state agency to identify its core mission and prioritize its budget request. We took a hard look at every program and cut those that we could do without. I established the Commission for a New Georgia and asked some of our state's top business leaders to recommend ways we could improve the operations of state government. Implementing their recommendations have already saved the taxpayers millions of dollars, and those savings will multiply over the next few years. In total, thanks to our sound fiscal management and conservative budgeting, we've reduced the size of state government by over $1 billion per year, while also creating a surplus and rebuilding our rainy day fund. Because we made the tough decisions then, we are now able to make some of the important investments we had to defer when times were lean, just as we all must do in our own family budgets. And we will begin with our top priority, education. My education budget has a strong classroom focus because the classroom is where learning happens. It is only common sense that we should spend our education dollars where they can do the most good and have the biggest direct impact on student achievement. And that is exactly why I've asked you to establish a standard for local school districts to spend at least 65% of their budgets in the classroom. I believe that next to having parents involved in their children's education, the single best thing that we can do for our students is to keep dedicated and experienced teachers in our classrooms. Of course, we all know that a teacher's job begins long before the first class starts and continues long after the last bell sends those students home. As a son of a teacher, I also know this from personal experience. My mother taught English, but she taught her students much more than the fundamentals of reading, writing, and grammar. She taught them lessons of character and responsibility and helped them gain the confidence and skills they needed to succeed. Each of us can recall teachers who have inspired us and challenged us to excel. Those of us who are parents know the importance of good teachers in our own children's lives. And everyone recognizes the critical role that teachers play in preparing the next generation to assume their role in society. And that is why all of us appreciate the demanding and important work that Georgia's teachers do. And that's why I want us to give our teachers a well-deserved 4% pay raise. As you know, with the step increase for over a majority of our teachers, this will mean that many of them receive a 7% raise. But just as importantly, my budget also provides teachers health insurance with no premium increases. And let me tell you one thing more. As long as the people of Georgia trust me to be their governor, our Georgia teachers will remain the highest paid teachers in the Southeast. Today I want to share with you and our teachers some additional good news. As we all know, many of our teachers dig into their own pockets each school year to purchase classroom materials and supplies. Teachers buy extra pencils and notebooks for their students, decoration for the bulletin board, materials for a class project, and the list is just about endless. But the important point is that teachers are spending their own money to help our children learn. And I believe that dedication deserves recognition. It also deserves a little bit of extra help from us. And that's why I've included $10 million in my budget to provide every Georgia teacher with one of these, the classroom gift card. The classroom gift card works just like a store gift card that many of us found in our stockings at Christmas. Each classroom gift card will be worth $100 that can be used to purchase school supplies during Georgia's back-to-school sales tax holiday this fall. It's just one more tool that we can provide our teachers to help them do their important job. Of course, showing respect for teachers means just not rewarding their hard work, but understanding that they are the ones on the front lines who deserve a listening ear for their ideas. As I announced yesterday, this year we will meet another top request from teachers by reducing class sizes in grades K through 8 through my Truth in Class Size legislation. My budget includes $163 million for class size reduction. Our budget also includes $447 million in bonds for classroom construction, for new equipment, and for buying 1,000 new school buses. That means that we'll have new buses in every county in the state. A strong classroom focus will help every district and every school improve. But there's another critical ingredient for raising student achievement, and that's leadership. Every teen needs a great leader to set a great example. And in our school, that's the principal's job. And in those schools that most need improvement, solid leadership from the principal's office is essential. With many of our most experienced principals approaching retirement, we must now recruit and train the next generation of educational leaders. My budget includes $3 million to recruit high-performance principals to lead our needs improvement middle and high schools. High-performance principals have a proven record of raising student achievement results in the schools they lead. These are the leaders that I want in our most challenged schools. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, sadly, nearly 40% of our students drop out of high school before earning their diplomas. In a state with as much promise as Georgia, that's an unacceptable waste of talent. It's high time for Georgia to make sure that more of its students graduate from high school. In the competitive global economy, dropouts will pay a steep price for their incomplete education. The jobs with the future are knowledge jobs. And you've got to have the knowledge before you get the job. Our employers also pay the price of high dropout rates when they can't find enough skilled workers to meet their demands. And that's why my budget targets $23.3 million to raise Georgia's graduation rates. This will put this money will be put to a completion counselor in every single high school in Georgia with the sole purpose of working individually with students to encourage them to complete their education. Overall, my budget devotes over 72% of new revenues to education. You know, they say the best time to plant an oak tree is 100 years ago. But the second best time to plant an oak tree is today. My friends, with this budget, we're planting a forest of oaks for Georgia's children and their future. Getting a good education and finding that first job are doors of opportunity that should be open wide for every young Georgian. And before I discuss our broader plans to spur job creation in Georgia, I want to highlight one initiative that is introducing a special group of young Georgians to the workplace. The Teen Work Initiative offers summer employment opportunities to teens in foster care. And last summer, over 400 foster teens were employed by state agencies and private companies. And before starting work, each of these teens received outstanding training in basic job skills, such as how to apply for a job, proper business attire, and good time management. Foster kids often lack the mentors and the role models to teach them workplace fundamentals. The Teen Work program has given these foster teens a successful start in their working careers. But that doesn't surprise me. I'm proud to tell you that the Teen Work Initiative was created by the First Lady's Children's Cabinet, chaired by the best champion Georgians' children have ever known, my lifelong partner and the love of my life, Mary Perdue. Through the Our Children's campaign, Mary has encouraged thousands of Georgians to get involved in meeting the needs of abused and neglected children within their own communities. She's organized 3 statewide summits on our children to raise public awareness of children's issues. Last year, Mary and the Children's Cabinet helped launch the Foster Family Foundation of Georgia. The foundation is an independent, nonprofit organization that will recruit, train, and support both foster parents and adoptive families. That's only a fraction of Mary's many efforts to improve the lives of Georgia's children. And I'm not bragging when I say that I work hard as your governor, but I want you to know that your First Lady works just as hard for this cause so close to her heart. And Mary, I want you to know I'm proud of you and the example that you set for caring for all of Georgia's children. And in a very real sense, everything we do to strengthen and improve our state is for the sake of our children and grandchildren. I know that being a proud father and grandfather strengthens my determination that the next generation of Georgians will inherit from us a state where they can aspire to a better education, a better job, and a better life, and a state with its priorities clear and its books in order. Yes, we want these things for ourselves, but above all, don't we want to leave to our children a better world? Yet for many parents, improving the life of their children isn't just about hopes and dreams for the future. It's also a question of economic survival in the here and now. For today's families, child care is a critical need, and that's why I'm proposing that we enact a Georgia Child Care Tax Credit in addition to the existing federal tax credit. The new Georgia Child Tax Credit will return $50 million to working parents by 2008 to help with child care expenses. Helping parents and families afford child care is the kind of practical step that government should take to help create conditions for prosperity. Government should be about the business of empowering Georgians to learn more, to earn more, and to save more. Government should also make the wise, long-term investments that will help our economy keep growing and keep creating jobs for decades to come. You see, in the 21st century global economy, we have only two options. Georgia can lead, or Georgia can be left behind. And I want to guarantee you this: as long as I'm governor, Georgia's going to lead. To lead, we must innovate. That means we must become a state of innovation. That means making innovation our competitive advantage in every area of our economy, in our existing industries, our homegrown small businesses, and in the growth industries of the future, such as life sciences and nano-manufacturing. These are the industries that will cure cancer, improve our food safety and supply, and provide new sources of energy to power our lives and propel our state's economy forward. Building an innovation economy requires three main ingredients: people, capital, and infrastructure. Georgia is investing in all three areas. We're investing $80 million this year alone. Our Eminent Scholar program already brings world-class researchers to Georgia, the scientists and inventors whose research changes lives and becomes the basis for new companies and even new industries. Bringing university research from the lab to the market has helped us create successful companies in Georgia like MindSpring, now Earthlink, and medical science leaders like Inhibitex and Theragenics. At our Centers of Innovation, we're bringing our best university research together with top Georgia companies to make new advances in logistics, data processing, aeronautics, agriculture, new advances that will help Georgia companies become more competitive, grow more rapidly, and create more jobs. In the area of investment capital, we will budget $5 million to expand our seed capital fund for early-stage bioscience entrepreneurs, and $5 million for the Life Sciences Facilities Fund to help provide growing bioscience firms with the facilities they need to continue their growth here in Georgia. To strengthen our investment infrastructure, I'm also recommending investments in nanotechnology, energy, and broadband technology. My budget includes $38 million in bonds to complete the construction of a nanotechnology research center at Georgia Tech to establish Georgia as a global leader in this emerging industry. To ensure Georgia's energy future, I'm budgeting $2 million to seed research on developing alternative fuels, such as expanding our biorefinery program at the University of Georgia. Biofuels convert materials like wood chips, peanut hulls, and other organic matter into viable energy sources. As a strong agricultural state, Georgia should be and will be a leader in this field. We'll be able to meet more of our own energy needs, reduce our dependence on foreign oil, and turn a profit. The third area of investment is broadband. I call broadband the new dial tone. Today, we could not imagine any business, much less an entire community, operating without access to a reliable telephone service. Today, broadband internet is just as important for our 21st century communications infrastructure. The goal of my broadband initiative is to ensure that every Georgia community is plugged into the global economy through the broadband connectivity that individuals and businesses need. I will ask the One Georgia Authority to establish a $5 million grant program to support rural broadband access. In addition, I'm also proposing a $5 million initiative at the Georgia Technology Authority to partner with at least 3 Georgia cities to bring wireless broadband, Wi-Fi, to their areas. With these and the many other investments included in my budget, we will continue Georgia's transformation into a state of innovation that will provide a growing economy, good jobs, and thriving communities for our citizens. As we build an educated and growing Georgia, we must also act to create a safer Georgia. We must get dangerous sexual predators off our streets and away from our children. I know that I can count on the General Assembly to ensure that Georgia will have the toughest sexual predator law in the nation by the end of this session, and to ensure that we have enough prison space to keep dangerous criminals locked up. I'm recommending $45 million to add 4,300 beds to the state's prison system and reduce the jail backlog burden on our counties. Unfortunately, we're all too aware of a growing plague in our state, methamphetamine. Meth destroys lives, attacks families, and undermines communities. Georgia has been a leader in battling the scourge of methamphetamine, but we need to do more. My budget includes $1 million to create a GBI meth force to target and investigate meth-related crimes statewide. I've also invited United States Attorney General Alberto Gonzales to come to Georgia and discuss stronger state and federal coordination of anti-meth efforts. He has accepted and will be here with us this month. We will not allow the scourge of meth abuse to run unchecked in our state. Georgia will fight back and Georgia will win. That's just the nature of our people. Show us a problem and we will find a solution. That problem-solving, get-it-done attitude that comes so naturally to Georgians is exactly what they expect from their state government. You know, another thing they expect and deserve is efficient, customer-friendly service. And one example of the emphasis we're placing on customer service was the excellent work of Joe Doyle and the task force that he led to identify specific ways that we can and will ensure that government services are easier to access, faster to complete, by friendly people with a smile. Thank you, Joe. Let me just share one success with you. And a story still in progress because we still got work to do. But I'm proud of the results so far. Last year at this podium, you'll recall, I said that if our state government didn't have a monopoly on the business of issuing driver's licenses, we'd be out of business. I think that accurately summed up the frustration many Georgians felt over the long lines and headaches at DMV. So we created a Department of New Driver Services with one core mission: getting Georgia drivers their licenses quickly, efficiently, and courteously. Commissioner Greg Dozier and the nearly 750 driver services employees have taken their mission to heart and have taken the licensing process to a whole new level. We're hiring more licensed examiners, opening new service centers, enabling online change of address, and otherwise making the renewal process more pleasant and convenient for busy Georgia drivers. How much progress have we made? Well, radio listeners will know that Neil Bortz is not exactly low maintenance when it comes to government services. But even Neil took time on his air to complement the most recent license renewing experience. So to Greg and all his team at the Department of Driver Services, thank you, Greg, and keep up the good work. Just as Georgians expect our government to provide excellent service, we also expect, and rightfully so, that government will respect our individual rights and liberties, including our personal property rights. Last summer, the Supreme Court of the United States took a hammer to the property rights with their eminent domain decision. The court ruled that government can use its awesome power to condemn your property and give it to another private owner for private profit. I say now what I said then. The court got it wrong. That's not the America I grew up in, and that's not the America I want to live in. Private property is one of the bedrock foundations of our freedom. And I stand with Georgians in saying, we will do whatever it takes to protect our personal property rights in Georgia. But government has another awesome power, the power to tax. Whenever government takes more than it needs of your money, we have a responsibility to give it back. And that's exactly what my budget does. When rising gas prices brought a revenue windfall to government last fall, we returned $77 million to taxpayers by suspending the sales tax on gasoline. Skyrocketing natural gas prices produced another windfall to the state and made it more expensive for Georgians to heat their homes this winter. I asked the General Assembly to ratify my executive order cutting the sales tax on natural gas for home heating in half, giving up to $20 million back to Georgians. And I want to say today, on behalf of the people of Georgia, I want to thank you for your speedy action today on this important item. Thank you. There's another giving back story that I want to share with you. We're giving back to Georgia seniors. They worked hard and paid taxes all their lives. And as we move toward my goal of eliminating this income tax for seniors, this year we will begin giving seniors $285 million in tax savings. Additionally, we've provided $60 million in tax relief for small businesses. We reformed our corporate tax system to provide greater incentives for companies to locate and to grow jobs here in Georgia. My proposed land conservation tax credit provides tax savings of up to $250,000 for land donated by individuals and $500,000 donated by corporations, along with the $5 million in my local budget for local land grants. This credit will help us reach Georgia's conservation goals. Our annual sales tax holidays have helped Georgia parents pay for back-to-school clothing and supplies worth over $10 million in savings a year. We acknowledge, ladies and gentlemen, the sacrifices of our National Guard by exempting the military income of Guard members on active duty for income tax, a well-deserved savings. This is a well-deserved savings of $4.5 million for our military families. And we've delivered hundreds of millions of dollars in property tax relief to Georgia homeowners. My budget this year fully funds the homestead tax exemption at the tune of $434 million. Collectively, including my two new proposals, which I hope you will agree to, we will have provided Georgians with more than $2 billion in tax relief since I took office. spending only what we need and no more, constantly seeking new efficiencies, aggressively returning money to the taxpayers. That's what I believe it means for government to live within its means. That's what it means for those of us entrusted with the management of government to meet our obligations of stewardship. The people of Georgia are the owners of our state, the ultimate shareholders to whom we're all accountable. As a growing economy brings a brighter revenue picture, we will not lose sight of these cornerstone truths. And we will continue to ask the tough questions and scrutinize every program and every line item. We will continue investing in Georgia's families and their kitchen table issues like education, jobs, and safe communities. But one thing we will not do, we won't go back to the bad spending habits of the past. As I said here last year, we've already burned the ships that could take us back. We're committed now to going forward, to building a new Georgia on the foundations of openness, accountability, and stewardship. In recent months, I've traveled to nearly every corner of our state. I've met with hundreds of Georgians, thousands, farmers and students, small business owners and factory workers, young parents and retirees. They share with me their stories of success, their plans, their dreams, and their optimism about Georgia's future. I feel very strongly about my responsibility to all of our citizens, as I know every member of this legislature does. But I must admit to you today, there's one group of Georgians toward whom I feel an extra measure of responsibility: our men and women in the armed forces serving overseas. Especially on my mind are the troops of the Georgia National Guard's 48th Brigade, currently on active duty in Iraq. I had the privilege of spending Thanksgiving holiday with our troops in the Middle East. I was humbled to travel to Iraq and Afghanistan to express the gratitude, the pride, and support that Georgians feel for these men and women, our neighbors and our family members, who are giving so much to defend our freedom. I let our troops know that Georgians are keeping our promise to care for their families while they are away. Many Georgia companies and individuals have given to the Georgia National Guard Foundation, which I encourage all of you to support. Tens of thousands of Georgians are lending their support in countless other ways, including their prayers. And as I visited with our soldiers, I asked if there was anything else that we could do for them. And they wanted to know that Georgians know that they understand that they have a mission to help a true democracy take root in Iraq, and that they are committed to finishing that job. Some wanted me to bring personal greetings and messages back to their loved ones, which I gladly did. And others asked, "Governor, I want to know if there will be a job waiting for me at home when we finish the job here." Last May, I proudly stood with our troops at Fort Stewart to salute them and wish them Godspeed as the 48th deployed to Iraq. But, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm looking forward to this year is standing with them when Georgia welcomes them home. Thank goodness this is the year that the 48th comes home, and the least we can do as we welcome them back to is ensure that every returning service member finds a job waiting for them in Georgia. As their governor and commander-in-chief, I've made a solemn pledge to our Guard members that this will be true. Will you help me keep that promise? Our citizens Our citizen soldiers are performing heroic, world-changing work, not only by fighting bravely, but through the small, day-to-day human victories. In this war against an inhumane creed of terrorism, our innate compassion and humanity are the most effective and gentlest weapons. Thanks to Georgians, a better world is already coming into view for one young Iraqi, baby Noor. It was members of Georgia's 48th Brigade who helped give new life to a 3-month-old Noor, an Iraqi born with a severe spinal cord defect that was untreatable in Iraq. Our citizen soldiers arranged to fly baby Noor and her grandmother to Atlanta, where doctors at Children's Healthcare performed the life-saving surgery that she needed at no charge. Baby Noor is still here in Atlanta undergoing treatment, but when she returns to her parents in Iraq, she will bear a new name, a name that with the new name carries the promise of hope. Her family has decided to call this precious little girl Georgia. When I was in the Middle East, one of the soldiers of the 48th whom I met during my visit was Private Shane Parham of Social Circle. Private Parham served as a gunner on a Humvee. He was injured in the line of duty when his Humvee rolled over, and he's now back home in Georgia. Shane has been recommended to receive the Bronze Star. When he's not wearing his country's uniform, Shane serves the people of Georgia in the uniform of a Walton County Deputy Sheriff. As a father of 3 young daughters, Shane Parham's love of children has given him a special insight into the significance of the work he and his comrades in the 48th are doing. When he got back from Iraq, he had this to say, and I quote, "If we can get these Iraqi children to like us, our children will not have to fight theirs." This may be one of the wisest comments I've heard on the conflict in Iraq. Differences of religion, politics, and culture aside, Iraqis love their children too, just like we do in Georgia. And just like Georgians, Iraqi parents want a better life for their children. And that was something that they could never have hoped for. Now, thanks to a young Georgia father named Shane Parham and thousands of his colleagues and fellow service members in the 48th Brigade and across the armed forces, Iraqis have hope. We're proud to have Private Shane Parham and his wife Wendy in the gallery today, along with Georgia's Adjutant General David Porthos. Help me join in welcoming them today. Don't let anyone tell you that our troops aren't making a difference. Everything we hope to build in Georgia and every dream we hope to attain for our state is made possible by the shield and the protection that they provide. They made possible the progress that I expect to report when I return here next year. And they help to ensure that Georgia and all of America, that our best days are ahead of us. God bless America. And God bless Georgia. And God bless your work.
Good speech, Governor. Good program.
And Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor delivered the Democratic Party response to the governor's State of the State address. When we return, we'll have reaction from legislators. But first, Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor.
For nearly 20 years, I've taken the same approach to every legislative session. Focus on the needs of everyday Georgians to make sure this government, your government, works for you, all of you. Right now, the state of Georgia provides Hope Scholarships to every child who graduates with a B average. Scholarships that allow them to attend any Georgia university tuition-free. Every single one. We provide Hope Scholarships to every high school graduate. Scholarships that allow them to attend any Georgia technical college for free. Every single one. We provide pre-kindergarten to every 4-year-old in Georgia who wants it. Every single one. I was proud to lead the legislative fight for these groundbreaking programs. It's time to lead again. It's time to provide health insurance to every child in Georgia, every single one, regardless of who they are, who their parents are, where they live, or how much their parents make. I fought for children's health care my entire career, a fight that led to PeachKids, a program that now provides health coverage for more than 200,000 Georgia kids. Yet too many families and their children fall through the cracks, struggling in gaps left by a patchwork of health care programs. We're talking about displaced workers who lose their coverage through no fault of their own. Think of the thousands of Georgia employees who will soon be without health care at Delta, GM, and Bell South, just to name a few. We're talking about thousands of families without health care who make too much money to qualify for help. Let me repeat that. These families make too much money to qualify, but they don't make enough to afford basic health insurance. So their kids end up with no health insurance at all. It was the same problems families had with college tuition before we passed Hope, and it's wrong. This idea comes from a program in place in Illinois. We'll adopt it to the needs of Georgia and make it our own. We call it PeachKids, and it'll provide health insurance for every child in Georgia. Now get ready for the usual suspects to come forward. The ones who say it can't be done. The same people who told me Hope couldn't be done. The same people who said pre-K couldn't be done. But we got them done. And we'll get PeachKids done, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes. Listening to Governor Perdue today, it's clear we now agree on a few issues we've disagreed on over the last few years. An important one is reducing class size. In every part of Georgia, there are overworked teachers in overcrowded classrooms. Governor, I hope we can work together to reduce class size in this state. I'll also support your effort to increase teacher pay. But one-time election year proposals will not solve our education problems. We need to worry about teacher pay, class size, and our kids' education not just in election years, but every year. And that goes for tax cuts, too. We haven't passed a tax cut for families in several years. As the proud sponsor of the largest tax cut in our state's history, I'll support any new tax cut, including a child care tax credit for Georgia families. As you all know, the Hope Scholarship has a special place in my heart. Over the past few years, over my objections, Hope has been cut needlessly and too often. Today, students and their families are reaching in their pockets to buy things Hope used to pay for. That's wrong. The greatest college scholarship program in the nation deserves better than that. It's time to restore all Hope cuts that were made. The governor also proposes a constitutional amendment to protect Hope, and I'll support any effort to do that. But you have to read the fine print, and when you do, you'll find out that this amendment does not, I repeat, does not protect the Hope program from future budget cuts by Governor Perdue or anyone. If this amendment passes, Hope can still be cut at any time, for any reason, and by any amount. In the end, protecting Hope requires leadership and a real commitment to keeping it strong. I was there when Hope started. I have that commitment, and I'll be watching every minute to make sure the Hope Scholarships are protected. As we work to make our kids as healthy as they can be and give them the best education we can, we also need to protect them from a constant cultural assault that undermines our values. So let's prohibit the sale of extremely violent and sexually explicit video games to children under age 18. Let's establish uniform rating guides for all forms of entertainment so parents can get reliable information about content. And let's give parents more input about the content of health and sexuality curriculum being taught in schools. Let's protect our kids and make these simple ideas the law of the state. And that brings me to one final point. I'll support any measure that helps and honors the outstanding men and women of our military. I believe in Georgia, and for nearly 20 years I've gone to work every single day thinking about one thing. What can we do to improve the lives of everyday Georgians? Each and every one of you. You should be the focus of this session. Your family, your schools, your health, your values, your life. I'm ready to go to work for you. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Georgia.
Both Democrats and Republicans had comments on Governor Perdue's State of the State address. Most reactions were positive about his education initiatives. However, Democrats say some of the ideas are issues they've been working on for the past few years.
A fabulous speech. You know, we've gone through 3 dark years, gone through the valley of darkness. The teachers and the state employees and Georgians have been behind us as we've made tough choices.
I thought it was a very positive speech with a lot of good news in it, and a lot of that flows from the increasing revenues.
We're at probably $250 million or so right now in reserves, and we're ahead of this year's forecast, so we're going to accumulate even larger reserve by the end of this fiscal year.
I thought it was a wonderful speech. I mean, I felt like that the governor really shows where he's focused, and that's education. He's always been focused on education. We just hadn't had the resources in the past to be able to do what we wanted to do.
One of the most exciting state of the state speeches that our governor's done in the 4 years. Just very excited about what's happening, especially in education and with the economy and just the whole state of Georgia.
Well, I think it was a great speech. He put in some things that were certainly long overdue with regard to education.
It's election year politics. That's all I can say. We have been working for increased funding to education as Democrats. I'm sorry to say the governor has been cutting education for 3 years.
Listening to Governor Perdue talk about how he plans to spend the money that we've collected this year in a growing economy, it made me proud to be an American, proud to be a Georgian.
Last year, the last thing that he did in the session was to suspend for 2 years the class size reduction. And now all of a sudden it's an election year and he's seen the light. It strikes me as more of a political thing than it does an actual change in his philosophical position.
Protecting our children from sexual predators was one of his top priorities. Educating our children for the future, protecting private property rights, public safety in general.
The governor talked about eminent domain. We're going to do things on eminent domain to restrict what governments can do on taking personal property. The governor has that as one of his initiatives, and that's very important to the legislature.
We also thought it was very interesting that he made a priority of the eminent domain and protecting property rights. When that issue is in the forefront now in Georgia, because the Republican stance last year was Senate Bill 5, which resulted in a public outcry against the notion of allowing government to condemn private property and use it and sell it to private developers.
I just was thoroughly pleased with the governor, proud of him and his message, and just proud to be a Georgian. And I guess the icing was that young Iraqi baby who's now going to be named Georgia. I think that was an emotional hit to me as a parent of young children.
I think the governor has put the emphasis where it needs to be, over $1 billion in new funds for education. He's invested in infrastructure and trying to help companies create jobs. And I think all across the board, including recognizing that we need to all support our veterans when they get back home. I think he's covered all the bases.
I think he showed his commitment to education. The money that you've seen he's already put in his package as far as transportation goes to provide money for 159 counties to be able to provide the infrastructure, which is the road, that in turn helps the economic development to bring in jobs and industries and businesses into those areas.
We were surprised that health care, the Medicaid issue, the PeachKids issue, and these things that relates directly to our children, to that segment of our community, we felt those were not covered adequately enough.
What is interesting is that for the first time in 4 years, education has suddenly become a priority, where for Democrats it has been our priority for years. I think it will help define what he has done or not done in the past 3 years and what Democrats do stand for. In the past, we've allowed them to define our priorities, and this year, Democrats want to step forward and recapture those things that we know have made this state great with our Democratic priorities.
And that concludes our coverage of the governor's State of the State address.
We ask you to join us tomorrow night at 7 for our regular Lawmakers broadcast. We'll have more reaction to the governor's speech.
And, of course, all the legislative news. I'm Wandy Lawson.
And I'm Gerald Bryant. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more great programs here on GPB.
Good night.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.